It's the most wonderful time.
We're in one of Dublin's busiest streets. Some people are shopping, some people are Instagramming the lights, but soon they'll all be heading home. But for some tonight, that won't be an option.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
As the homeless crisis rages on, the government sticks to positive messaging about the increase in emergency beds. But 4 people have died in 6 weeks this winter as a result of rough sleeping, according to Dublin's inner city Helping Homeless. We joined them for a night to see how bad the situation is. Inner City Helping Homeless was founded in 2013 in response to the rising numbers of people sleeping rough. Members of the local community came together to do a soup run around the city, and on the first night, over 40 volunteers turned up wanting to help. It now operates as a 7-night-a-week outreach service across the city. The night starts around 10 p.m. as volunteers gather in the ICHH hub on Amiens Street to prepare for the night.
We're relying on donations at this stage. We're relying on companies handing in. Facebook have been very good. Intel have been very good because it's taken out a pretty large percentage of what ICHH has to actually spend. Everything else like this, we try and keep it down to sort of necessity. So it's tea, coffee, sandwiches. They're the things that people really need. Wipes. That's the thing that they need more than anything, male and female. They just to have wipes just to clean themselves down, because often they mightn't even have access to somewhere to actually go to, toilet facilities.
They're given a safety briefing. The plan is to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
In the event of a needle prick, squeeze the wound and do not suck the wound. Proceed straight to the hospital. If a client is using drugs, ask them to put their paraphernalia away until you finish engaging with them. Do not climb railings or enter any area that is deemed to be dangerous to you, yourself, or your team leaders.
Before we head out on the streets, Brian McLaughlin gives us a preview of what to expect.
I mean, the homeless figures themselves are going up every single month, so that has the knock-on effect. The numbers stay consistent enough from 150 to 200. That seems consistent enough, but we're still way under-resourced when it comes to the amount of beds that are in the system.
Tell me about the family that you had today and what was their issue?
So we've had a family with us for the last couple of days. So the problem for them is that they've been told to self-accommodate, so they get the list of hotels to try and get accommodation. They had struggled to do that, so they went back to the free phone system and said, we need accommodation for the night. They're given an overnight accommodation, which means that they present at 8 p.m. and then they have to be out at 8 a.m. the next morning. So they had 4 kids, 4 small children. They had walked the streets on Tuesday during the hailstorm and the bad weather, so they came to us. So we've actually been putting them up during the day just to keep the kids safe and keep them warm, and we transport them to their accommodation tonight. But again, it's that uncertainty of, small children walking the street, parents not knowing where to actually bring them, and that's a huge problem. Kids should not be out, particularly in the winter.
This volunteer-led charity doesn't have the resources to give everyone a bed for the night, but armed with a thermos, they can provide welfare checks via a cup of tea and some instant noodles. 5 minutes in, they check up on a man sleeping rough near St Stephen's Green. He doesn't want to be on camera, but is a regular, according to volunteers.
You could have a substantial amount out, pending the weather. There could be less out because they hide. People have a fear factor again of going into hostels, so they would stay out on the streets. And the teams, as you see them, they know the regulars. And then somebody will be passing by and tap them on the shoulder, have nowhere to go, can I get a cup of tea? And that's what the service is for, and that's what it's doing.
So the people that we're seeing out tonight are people who couldn't get shelter or who can't because it's too dangerous?
Yeah, both. You've explained both sides of it. The fear factor of going into a hostel, as we know, that there is troubles in hostels. There's a substance in hostels. I mean, there's guys that come out after doing a good, some rehab, and they're clean and they want to keep clean, so they avoid going into the hostels where there is substance taken, and they will sleep out.
Before long, we come across a lady who has been homeless for a few months. Off camera, she tells us that she feels safer on the streets rather than in a hostel. She walks the city throughout the night to find a safe place to sleep. It's just before midnight. It's an uncomfortable 4 degrees out here. We're just about to meet the other half of the team over on the north side. Our night's only half over, and for these volunteers, some of them, it's just beginning.
usually hit maybe 50 to 60 people most nights. Most people don't actually have a place that they can stay, and there are a couple of people who might have beds that will also use the facilities, but that's down to probably single figures, maybe 6-7 people, whereas the people who don't have anywhere to stay, we're probably looking at about, like I said, about 50 people.
And what are they normally? Are they normally single men? Do you see families sometimes?
It's about 80 to 90% males to females, and it's usually mostly focused on the more single people that will come across. Families seem to get preference going into any of the hostels.
As we approach the centre of Henry Street, we come across a row of tents outside one of Ireland's busiest shopping centres. Neil heads down to the group to see if they're in need of any help. After a quick chat, he arrives back, and one man, who does not want to be identified, wants to tell us his story. How are you finding it? You talked about wanting to shave before going on telly. How do you maintain personal hygiene, and does it get you down, basically?
Places that we can go for showers and we can go for meals, but it's hard. Look, you can imagine the amount of homeless people on the streets. There's queues. You can't book a shower. You have to go, and hopefully there's time in the day or the time that's allocated for showers that you can get your shower in.
Let's talk about safety. Do you feel safe on the streets? I can't imagine you would, but...
Well, it's safety in numbers, isn't it? There's a few of us stay together,
Next, we caught up with the emergency van, which travels around different suburbs in Dublin stocked with sleeping bags. Our first stop was the canal just off Leeson Street. Volunteer Bernie tells us underneath the pedestrian walkway, a family has been living within a wall.
Like you can see the sleeping bags and the rubbish. And then when you come in further, there's a makeshift bed.
Really?
Because there's a drop down, yeah.
How deep is it?
Well, it's very deep.
What that is an overflow.
But there's rats coming in and out of it as well, so be careful. It's just a crying shame. These people are ordinary people like us. Maybe they fell on bad times, I don't know. But they're very private people.
Yeah.
They really are private. They don't want you messing up their
Their life, their system.
home,
The latest figures released by the Department of Housing show that there are 9,724 people accessing state-funded emergency accommodation in October. It was announced earlier this month that the Dublin Region Homeless Executive will make 333 extra beds available this winter. But charities say this isn't fast enough, with most beds not ready by the end of December. As we approach Portobello Bridge, Bernie and her team meet James. James talks to us about his personal problems, which have led him to sleeping rough. He worries most about how others will survive on the street. What do you think people don't understand about being homeless?
What
would you like people to know?
About being homeless is people that's homeless should, if the homeless don't sleep out just with a sleeping bag on the side of a road, at least get a tent somewhere, or people should hand out free tents just to sleep anywhere and give out sleeping bags so they're in a tent and they won't die.
Is there any hope of you getting onto a housing list?
Hopefully.
And what are you doing in the meantime? Just hanging out, waiting?
Waiting. Well, you can't do anything else with the crisis that's going on, because everybody's in this crisis. And Ireland needs a better government, a better responsibility for the people that need it.
It's the 4th anniversary since the passing of homeless man Jonathan Corrie, who was found dead a few feet away from the Dole. Promises were made then to improve the homeless crisis, but has it? The homeless across the city don't think so.